Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lendingkart Leadership Podcast.
In this series, you get to hear our esteemed leaders answer some very serious and some not so serious questions.
Tune in for some candid conversations.
Today, we have with us the man who puts the tech in fintech, our Chief Technology Officer, Giridhar Yasa, who also goes by the name of Simon. Hi, Giri. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you for taking out time to chat with us today.
Thank you very much, Kenny, for inviting me to this podcast. I'm very excited about what's in store. I've heard the earlier podcasts as well, and there's some great content, and looking forward to this.
We're happy to have you with us too, Giri. So I'd like to begin by asking you, what is this mystery behind Simon? We've heard that you give out these names when you're out getting your coffee or tea, but you never give out your original name. So can you tell us a bit more about Giridhar Yasa, a.k.a. Simon?
Kenny, I'm sure Ram put you up to this. I had gone to Starbucks once with him, and usually when I'm out at Starbucks, it's just a little game. I don't give out my real name, I give a random name. Sometimes it's programming variable names. People who've been hardcore programmers know that foo, bar, bars are kind of variable names that are used. So sometimes I give out those names. That day, incidentally, I was listening to some Simon and Garfunkel, and I said that my name is Simon, and the gentleman next to me is Garfunkel. So that's the story behind Simon Kinney.
Are there what are your top 5 names that you definitely give out?
So there is foo, there is bar, there is bars, there is I think these three are the top three. Yes.
That's very, very interesting. Is that why your Twitter handle is called Appaji?
Not really, Kinney. Appaji happens to be my middle name.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's derived from my grandfather's name. So
Okay.
my full name is Giridhar Yasa, and I've been using Appaji for many, many years. So on social media, I'm often found as Appaji.
Oh, that's interesting. While you mentioned that on social media, you're often found as Appaji, and people know that you're quite active, at least on LinkedIn. Why do you hide from the world that you have a Twitter account actually? There's a whole movement that's happening on Twitter where people are looking for you to mark your attendance. So why are you not telling the world you're there on Twitter?
Kinney, I joined Twitter in 2008, and it's this whole 140 characters thing. I found it a bit odd, but then I did use it for some time. When I would attend conferences, I would sort of tweet from there saying that, hey, this is something interesting happening here. And I'd like to focus more on long form writing. So blog posts and articles are something to my taste. And I sort of think about them a little more and then put down my thoughts. But I do realize the value of being on Twitter and sharing comments off the cuff. And these days, Twitter threads are being used just like blogs have been used in the past. So I'm looking forward to joining Twitter back again and getting active. Most certainly, you'll very soon see me participating more actively on Twitter.
Looking forward to it, Giri. So, like you said, that you're more interested in long form content, and we've seen that you've been quite active on LinkedIn. You're posting updates on the various initiatives that you and your team have undertaken. So, can you help us explain to our audience, what is your role in the organization and what are the changes that we see your team is working on?
Traditionally in the banking industry, there was a CIO role, which was more in terms of managing the IT infrastructure. A lot of technology in the sector was purchased, right? And over time, people, and not just the banking industry, in other brick and mortar first industries as well, people have realized that technology needs to be more tightly controlled in line with the organization goals. Right? And hence, that's where my role comes in. So my role is to sort of set the direction and the strategy for technology at Lendingkart. It is to make sure that we are prioritizing the right kind of initiatives and bringing in a technology first mindset to everything that we are doing.
Right.
One example, Kini, would be that, oftentimes we say that, look, if we have to scale something, let us probably quickly add more people and do that, right?
Hmm.
But if it were
Right.
a tech first mindset, we
Hmm.
would say that, look, this is how we will start, and we will validate our hypothesis, and then we will convert it into a product, right, with technology interventions, so that this can scale massively, not just 2x, 3x, but 10x, 50x, 100x. Setting that tone in the
Right.
organization is really the core of my role, Kini.
No, that's very interesting. So basically, would you want to also tell us about the different initiatives that you've taken as a CTO and that your team is working on currently, or that you've built on in the past at Lendingkart?
Certainly. One of the most important projects that we've undertaken, Kini, is something called the Zero Touch Project.
Hmm.
And Zero Touch Project is all about the philosophy of ensuring that we don't have to touch the customer at all, but yet give them a fabulous experience when they visit Lendingkart and when they get a product from Lendingkart. So this has been a very important thing for us. And as a
Hmm.
part of this, we did several smaller initiatives. For example, we've been very clued in into the account aggregator
Hmm.
ecosystem.
Hmm.
We were the first to sort of be the financial information user there and underwrite based on data from account aggregator. We've
Right.
automated our credit operations quite a bit. So a lot of it happens straight through processing. There's north of 60% rejects, and post that 80% of what we sanction, is driven through a machine learning model and hence automated.
Hmm.
There are a whole lot of initiatives like this, Kini. Similarly, if you look at traditional DSA involvement with a
Hmm.
financial institution, the
Hmm.
direct selling agents, they bring in customers, they get commissions, and these commissions take a lot of time to be released.
Right.
They sometimes tend to be few thousands of rupees. For a large bank, that might sound small, but for the person who is bringing in the customer, it's their working capital, quote unquote, right? And hence enabling a faster payout was something that we did and we enabled. Otherwise, this would take close to 45 days to 90 days in some cases. What
Hmm.
we did was we brought that down to almost like an instant payout, wherein we do this within 48 to 72 hours.
Wow.
A lot of the collections world, Kini,
Hmm.
runs out of spreadsheets. It's a heavily manual process. It's fraught with errors and process gaps. It's heavily controlled, but technology brings in a lot of innovation there, all the way from pre-due to post-due, and what is even delinquent. There's a lot of interventions that can be done there using machine learning models and automation. So we've built an entire platform around that. The other important thing that we've done, Kini, is we've been working with a lot of co-lenders. And
Hmm.
these co-lenders are a varied set of banks and NBFCs. Some of them are very technologically savvy. Some of them are very traditional and still run with a branch-based model that is heavily manual. What we've done is we've provided levels of integrations with them.
Hmm. Hmm.
Those that do not have a very heavy technology team, we've given them out consoles and dashboards that they can use
Yeah.
directly from, almost like a SaaS.
Right.
For some of them who do have APIs, we've provided open APIs and we've done integrations with them. For some of those that run with partial tech systems, we've done a process plus automated interventions wherein we are able to generate reports and MISs for them and send them across. Overall, making the ecosystem advance rather than just lending card doing well. So we've taken on this. This is a big one that we've done as well.
No, that's very interesting. I think it's easing the process both from a lender and a borrower perspective.
Absolutely, absolutely. And everything that we do, Kini, is focused around the customer. Why do we want an API integration with the lender as opposed to maybe, sending a file or a spreadsheet at the end of the day? That's because we would want to delight our customer with lower TAT. And we've taken explicit goals around turnaround time from, the time the lead comes into a dispersal as well.
No, that's very interesting to hear, Giri. So you've mentioned so many different projects that you've done, and so many are still in process. So if I were to ask you that, what is the most complicated of these innovations that you've done from a tech perspective? So which project would you highlight? that this took the longest time or this was the most complicated to crack?
The ecosystem, Kini, is in a place wherein it is not fully mature, and hence a lot of what we are doing is actually tough.
Hmm.
There is obvious things that we pick up and do, right? But it's not straightforward. The MSME segment itself is a fairly complex segment. I'll give you an example wherein RBI says that we need two business registrations proofs, right? Or if you don't have two business registration proofs, you will have to do a field investigation and a personal verification of the customer. Now,
Hmm.
for a fintech like ours, that is not a possibility. But yet, the MSME customer does not understand what a business registration proof means.
Hmm.
They say that, oh, you know what, I have a PAN card, or they say that, yeah, I've done a GST registration. But the official notion of what a BRP is and whether it's current, and now if they have a BRP, how do we digitally verify that, right? So there are problems like this that we work on a daily basis. So I think
Hmm.
your question, if you say that, Giri, what was the toughest challenge in the last 1 month, I'll probably have a couple of examples. But it's a continuous game, and which is what makes it very exciting. We are solving problems on a daily basis and enabling the ecosystem.
So then I should ask you, what was the most challenging one in the last 1 month?
So one of the things, Kini, is that Lendingkart as a fintech, right, is really two parts. There is our own private label, which is
Right.
Lendingkart Finance Limited and our NBFC, and then there are co-lenders and
Right.
ecosystem partners, and we enable them through the platforms that we have. So RBI had recently come out with regulations saying that, look, here is what a regulated entity needs to do. Here is what a technology service provider for a regulated entity needs to do. So there was a lot of scramble around that, right? And this was one of the challenges that we had faced.
Hmm.
And the good thing about this was that because we eat our own dog food, right?
Hmm.
Because the platforms that we've built are used internally at Lendingkart, and
Right.
hence we were able to understand what our platform customers' needs are, and we were able to enable that. Having said that, there was a lot of nervousness around, oh, you know what, there's other fintechs who are not able to do this. Will you be
Right.
able to do it? So, helping the customers understand what is it that we have from a technology perspective to enable them adhere to the RBI guidelines. That was a challenging thing that we had done recently.
Right. No, I did. I remember API guidelines did also mention the fact that the data security also comes into play in those guidelines. So, like as process they happen digitally, the importance of security also increases. So, do you have what is your take rather on the on cybersecurity and data protection, especially from a lending card perspective, considering that we're evaluating thousands and thousands of data points?
Right. It's a day zero mindset, I would say.
Hmm.
And recently, in one of the fintech festivals, SEBI chairman had said that there are a few important criterion
Hmm.
for a fintech to do business well. So one of those was that you'll have to be transparent to your customers,
Hmm.
right? You only take information that you need and tell them why you need it.
Hmm.
Right? Third is you don't allow for anonymity in the system. Who has done what needs to be clearly present,
Right.
right? And the fourth is the customer should not be logged into you,
Hmm.
right? So if you follow these guiding principles,
Hmm.
the business will thrive. And from the beginning, right, we have been following these principles, and hence the importance of data and the importance of security was sort of ingrained into us.
Hmm.
And we don't, for example, in our mobile app, pull out the contact list of our customers.
Right.
We ask for location information and video access one time when video KYC is happening.
Hmm. Hmm.
So these are some of the initiatives that we've taken, Kini, and all along this, we are very, very careful about data.
No, that's I think good to hear. Even our customers who are hearing this will be relieved. Um, so Giri, this we understand that there are so many challenges and complexities in the tech that you're building, and it's only going to increase over the years, right? So what are the expectations of say your role? How do you see it evolving over the years? Battling all these challenges or the complexities that tech will keep throwing at you.
So while there is a lot of complexity, Kini, I think our eye has to be on simplicity, right?
Yeah,
And
well,
that means simplicity across the board.
Hmm.
simplicity for our customer, simplicity for our partner, simplicity for our internal stakeholders, simplicity for the developers that are developing all the software, right? And if we have a view to that,
Hmm.
and if we say that everything that we are going to do, we look at it as something that is helping us become very big and
Hmm.
enabling scale,
Hmm.
or something that is enabling us to do things faster,
Hmm.
or once a certain set of stability comes into the system, it is enabling us to do it at a much lower cost than previously possible. So these three axes are what I continuously have my eye on and bring that to Lendingkart. So it is sort of difficult to say that, okay, here is the initiative and here is what I will pick up, right?
Right.
Give
Right.
you an example. If you think about a modern technology that's hot, right, like say blockchain, right?
Hmm.
We say that, look, there could be applications of this in supply chain financing, because
Hmm.
the supply chain industry is looking at blockchain.
Correct.
And there could be applications of this in maybe audit mechanisms, wherein proving a certain chain of custody is
Hmm.
easier done with this technology, right? So that ease with which we can do it, the reliability with which we can do it, the scale at with which we can do it. So these are the parameters that I tend to look at when I'm keeping myself abreast of certain technological trends and then bringing them to Lendingkart. And my team
Hmm.
plays a very big role in this. This is not a one person thing. A lot of engineers, a lot of muscle goes into this. Ideas come from across the board, Kini. It's not just a one person CTO thing.
No, I think it's very kind of you to mention that. And while you said that, the future of tech is actually simplicity, whatever you just said right now, it's very sounds very complex to me. But yeah, okay. So, like you mentioned, that how are the trends and how they're going to change. So, actually, I have a two-part question. Part one of that question is, how do you stay up to date with the current technological trends?
I have a few favorite periodicals, and these periodicals are not just blogs, right? I mean, I read physical magazines. I read The Economist. I subscribe to Mint as a newspaper. So I read these regularly. I'm also on a few forums, right, with other engineering leaders, wherein we talk to each other. At the end of the day, it's about sharing, right? It's a lot of what we do, Kini, is um, sort of look at what is out there, curate what works best for our particular context.
Right.
And hence, being plugged into the ecosystem is important. So that information, the availability of information, there's a lot of information out there.
Hmm.
So we together as a group, exchange ideas, and then we are able to figure out what to do, what not to do. There are certain other players out there who take a slightly holistic view.
Hmm.
Like, for example, in the business areas, right? Gartner sort of publishes a quadrant kind of a report on
Hmm.
various industry sectors. Similarly, ThoughtWorks, for example, publishes a ThoughtWorks technology radar every 6 months, which gives a sense of what is out there, what are people doing in various enterprises and in tech first organizations. So that's something that I closely follow. There are a certain set of foundations like the Linux Foundation and the Cloud Native Compute Foundation. Uh, I follow those foundations very closely, the reports that they generate and the talks that they have, and some participation there.
Hmm.
There is also um, certain forums, right? Certain technology forums and meetups that
Hmm.
we participate in and understand what people are doing on an ongoing basis in those forums. These are, Kini, some of my sources, and there are some favorite blogs of mine. Like there's a morning paper blog which looks at academic literature and what's happening out there,
Hmm.
and it sort of summarizes that. There is a high scalability blog which talks about what's happening in the world, wherein massive scale is very very important. So
Right.
some of these particular sources are what I rely on, actually.
Oh, that's interesting. And that brings me to the second part of my question. Um, what technological innovations do you think will impact businesses over the next 5 to 10 years?
I think 5 to 10 years is like a really long time, a really long time frame, right? And there's a long gestation period for technology to become mainstream,
Hmm.
right? It's a difficult question to answer, and
So when you say that it will take time for technology to become mainstream, would you want to expand on that a bit?
so a lot of technology, Kini, starts as experiment, right? Maybe in a certain lab or as a certain research paper. It starts with a punt or a bet,
Hmm.
and once there is this punt or bet that someone madly chases down,
Hmm.
something small emerges out of it, right? And then it's the larger community finds a way to sort of make it mainstream, push it towards more wider applicability, and what have you. I'll give you a few examples.
Hmm.
Many years ago, VMware, which is a company now, very big company, right? They started with virtualization, saying that, look, we will create a small machine within your physical machine to
Hmm.
enable testing of machines.
Hmm. Hmm.
Right now, that became and it started with that small idea. Then post that, it became big because physical machines started becoming very large, and
Right.
then you had to chop that physical machine down to many smaller machine to give it to people. And
Right.
that is where virtualization sort of started becoming mainstream. Similarly, there's a similar story around Docker as to how that became mainstream,
Hmm.
right? Wherein you would have a lot of dependencies. People would struggle to understand what piece of software depends on what, and some smart person said that, look, rather than picking up individual dependencies, why don't we bundle it together and ship it as one unit,
Right.
right? And that made things very easy for people. So these are a couple of examples, Kini. And if you look at blockchain, right, there are these concepts of proof of work
Hmm.
and proof of effort, and um, that sort of led to the entire, crypto.
Becoming massive. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So that's how I would put it, right? And none of these were unheard of maybe 7 8 years ago,
Hmm.
right? But they've sort of become mainstream today.
Understood.
So it's important for someone working in technology to look at um, what is happening out there, not just from a industry and a peer perspective,
Hmm.
but also from a technological curve and
Right.
academia perspective,
Right.
because a lot of it starts there.
Next question that I have for you is I will surely be very close to you. So while you've spoken so much about the tech at length overall from industry perspective and from a lending card perspective, from a personal perspective, right? How important is the culture of technology to you?
See, it is very important, right? Because um, fundamentally, if you look at what technology is,
Hmm.
from a square peg to a round wheel, that is technology.
Right.
So, identifying a problem
Mhm.
and then solving it innovatively is technology. And I like problems and I like problem solving. So, at the core of it, that is what technology is about. It is about trying to understand a problem
Hmm.
and then solving it in a way which can be leveraged for the better. To
Also,
answer your question slightly differently,
hmm.
technology is very close to my heart, and it comes from an area of problem solving and leveraging the solutions for greater good.
Understood, Giri. So is there something that you want to tell us about yourself that we don't know?
I don't know what you know, Kini. I mean, with social media, with people sharing information about one another fairly freely, there's a good chance that you probably know things about me more than I realize you do.
Well, I know. Would you like to tell our listeners?
Um, I like design a lot.
Hmm.
And when I say design, it's not just about systems design or high level design and architecture, right? But more in the physical world as well. um, how does your working environment affect your productivity, right? And what does the design of your working environment needs to be like, ergonomics, lighting, colors, fonts. This is something that I really like, and I sort of take up projects, Kini, and do them in my personal time and at home on those lines. This is something that probably a lot of people don't know about me.
Yeah. So make it real for us. No, give us some examples that you want to take in at home. What this design that you are talking about.
So I designed the entire lighting
Hmm.
in my home. And in order to be able to do that, I did a bunch of courses around lighting from Philips Lighting Academy,
Hmm.
and then understood what is the color temperature for what purpose, uh, for a particular bulb in a particular area of the house. This is something that I had taken up a few years ago and done. And more recently, I designed a space and a structural bit of a structural change in my house to put up a hydraulic elevator. These are these are two projects that I had taken up and done.
You were also talking about the about a certain material used for the desk, like working desks. You want to expand more on that? I'm very interested.
Yes, Kini. See, if you look at the place that you're working on,
Hmm.
maybe you're using a laptop and then you have a notepad and you have a mouse.
Hmm.
And there are various kinds of desks, right? There's a wooden desk, there's a glass desk. If you have a slight undulation and maybe a little bit of a texture on your desk, you
Hmm.
wouldn't be able to write very well. But if you have glass on your desk, your mouse won't work very well. So I think some of these, right, are things that you'll have to take care of. Otherwise, you end up engineering on top of them. You say that, look, this is a glass desk because I like the way glass desk looks, and then maybe I'll have to have a mouse pad on top of it to start using mouse.
Hmm.
Or you say that this is the texture that I really like, the feel of this particular surface, and hence it's okay if I'm not able to use a pencil on a paper on this particular desk. So I think some of these aspects, there are a lot, they're very, how do I put it, personal choices as well, Kini, that creep into how you work and how productive you are based on the design of that particular space.
So, are you happy with the design of your workspace and lighting in office where you sit?
Not entirely, but we are working on it.
That's very interesting, Giri, and I think I'll personally like to have another podcast with you just on that, so that we can discuss all these projects at length. But for now, I'll move on to my next question, and this is a very personal one. I've heard that you get about 15 lunch boxes on Monday, and the number of them keep reducing by the end of the week. So, would you just tell all of us what is the reason behind this?
Look, I'm a very big salad, vegetable, and fruit person.
Hmm.
And Saturday, Sundays, when I do my groceries, and I we bring home a lot of stuff on Saturday, Sunday. So Monday tends to be like this rich bounty of stuff that is available. So we fill in a lot of boxes, and I really enjoy that. And then as the week passes, some of the maybe the fruits or the vegetables, right, they are not as good over the week, and the quantity sort of reduce, and then it peters down as it comes down to the Friday. So that's really about it, Kinney. Not no big secret there.
So since you're recording this on a Monday, I'm guessing you have 15 lunch boxes with you today.
Today I have about 10 or so. Yes.
Well, good, great. So Giri, I just ask you my last question, and this is a very interesting one. So, if you were to give three reasons as to why somebody should join your team, what would they be?
Uh, Kini, there is a lot of startups out there, and all of them, there are engineering professionals, there are technology professionals in all these startups. But what drew me in, right, from a lending card perspective, and this is my personal story, and I would like to probably listen to such personal stories from others as well who join here, right? What drew me in was a big sense of purpose around lending card,
Hmm.
right? The MSME ecosystem, and not just the end customer, but the entire ecosystem, including
Hmm.
partners like DSAs or other financial institutions, are severely underserved by technology.
Right.
And we have a great opportunity to make that change. That's number one. The second thing is that the ecosystem is still developing, and our regulator is very, very friendly
Hmm.
in terms of enabling the ecosystem.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of opportunity for growth and learning. Third one is that we are what I call lending card 2.0 right now.
Right.
So 1.0 was wherein we had a lot of operations, we had customers coming in, and us enabling them a little manually,
Hmm.
right? But then we focused on customer first,
Hmm.
zero touch, and platformizing things.
Right.
And it's always very exciting to sort of break things down and build them again.
Absolutely.
And it's a tough challenge. So if someone likes that kind of a challenge, right, there is a lot of opportunity for them at Lending Card. And we are also building completely new platforms from scratch.
Right.
So there is opportunity for understanding the ecosystem, learning from a domain point of view, building things from scratch, and breaking things down and rebuilding them at Lending Card.
Very interesting. I think this should be your first tweet. you Giri, thank you so much for your time today. We're really glad to have recorded this with you.
Thank you so much, Kini. This is great chatting with you, and I look forward to many more conversations.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And to our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, hit like and share. मिलते हैं अगली बार with some real insights on leadership and the industry.